Welcome to the Buck Stops here, the official podcast of NotInHallOfFame.com, and I'm your host, Kirk Buckner, the Buck, the owner, the operator of NotInHallOfFame.com and the sister sites, the Fictitious Athlete Hall of Fame and the Fictitious Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Hope everyone's staying safe out there, and we still found a few things to talk about, even though sports are at a standstill, but there's still Hall of Fame related news. Travis Frederick, the center of the Dallas Cowboys, has retired, and we look at whether he's going to be a Hall of Famer or not. We also look at a few people who have passed away and are no longer with us. The legendary Curly Neal of the Harlem Globetrotters, Jimmy Wynn, the toy cannon of the Houston Astros, and a couple other significant people who are no longer with us. Kenny Rogers passed away earlier in the year, and the former drummer of R.E.M. With me, as always, is Evan Nolan of Chicago, Illinois, formerly of Boston, Massachusetts, and I bring that up because it's somewhat relevant. We looked at all these things, and a little bit of a challenge we had from last week. We came up with each with 5 people who we thought might be most affected if the NBA does not go on, or if it does not make a comeback this year. So without further ado, here's Evan. Evan, are you sort of like in quarantine up there in lovely Chicago?
Yeah, I guess. It looks like Chicago is about to be a hot spot coming up here. It's been a little bit weird. They've had all sorts of drone pictures of just Chicago being empty, which passed all over the place. So the virus is getting serious, despite what Mississippi thinks. I don't know if you heard that the governor of Mississippi today declared that any curfews or quarantines, whatever, put out by any of the mayors of any of the towns or cities was completely null and void.
Wow.
So. Yeah, so.
No, I didn't hear that. As I was sort of telling you before we went on air, so to speak, the nation of Barbados is going to be on they're going to institute curfew on starting Saturday night. I guess it'll be one big blow off because Friday night's the big party night here on the island. But I think they kind of have to do that because bars are still staying open here and people are still going out. I'm not among them. I'm on day 11 of my 25 days no drinking. So if you hear some shaking, that's what it is.
Well, to make up for it, if you hear some shaking in mind, it's just the ice in my glass of bourbon. So,
killing me.
Sorry. I'm sorry. Hey, you got to be tempted to stay strong. But, I mean, at least something got done today with, Congress looking at everything. The Senate at least passed their bill 94-0. Although someone did point out on Twitter the reason it passed unanimously is the one senator who would have voted against doing anything about coronavirus is currently under quarantine for coronavirus. So, because there's no way Rand Paul votes for it. And of course, Rand Paul was quarantined after using the Senate gym and the Senate pool and all sorts of stuff while he was waiting for his test results to come back. So. But he's a doctor. He doesn't know any better.
Well, he's, I guess, the Rudy Gobert of American politics.
That is very insulting to Rudy Gobert. So, anyway, but people, again, we always end up with talking politics and stuff at the beginning because that's just what's going on since there's no sports. So.
No, here's how I've been filling the time. I'm watching these 3 games each week from the NFL season, and I've restarted the 2019 baseball playoffs in its entirety. Don't tell me how it ends.
Nice. I won't. I won't. Particularly as an Expos fan, it probably hurt a little bit. But anyway, I actually was flipped on the NHL Network today, and they were playing Game 6 of Bruins Blackhawks series, which was slightly painful for me. So. Yeah, but anyway.
Yeah, you've got something that actually you wanted to get off your chest, sort of hockey related, with the Bruins.
Yes, that was not meant to be a segue, but it's a pretty good one. Okay, so let me set this up. As everyone here who pays attention knows, I am living in Chicago, but I'm originally from Boston, despite my lack of terrible accent. And I am a massive Boston sports fan who will defend the wall for the Patriots and everything online whenever necessary. However, my first love growing up, my very first team that I loved more than anything were the Ray Bourque-led Boston Bruins. And Bruins ownership my entire life, pretty much, has been a snake of a man who lives in Buffalo named Jeremy Jacobs, who owns a company called Delaware North. So pretty much every team at this point in all the major sports has done the right thing for their employees, or players have come out and done the right thing, whatever. I'm not going to say the owners of these sports teams have covered themselves in glory. But there's a very low bar, like a minimum, that you should do to make sure your employees are taken care of and stuff like that, just for PR reasons, if nothing else. Jeremy Jacobs, again, who brought us a championship in 2011, and the team's been in Stanley Cup Finals twice since then and hasn't made it. Jeremy Jacobs is a piece of shit. Let me repeat it for those in the back. Jeremy Jacobs is a fucking flaming pile of shit, and should be forced to sell the team, much like Donald Sterling was forced to sell his team. Not for the same reason. I'm not comparing what Donald Sterling said in his actions to what Jeremy Jacobs' actions are. Just that for the good of the league, he needs to be run out of it. Instead of taking care of his people, he fired their asses. They had a statement that came out yesterday in the middle of the afternoon. It says, effective April 1st, 2020, 68 of our full-time salaried associates were placed on temporary leave, receiving 1 week of paid leave and 8 weeks of full benefits. And as of the same date, 82 of our full-time salaried associates received an indefinite salary reduction. So there's no reduction for the upper-level management of the team. But all the poor plebes who are working there just got their asses fired. What else is going on? Oh, and they're not taking care of any of the stadium people at all. So Jeremy Jacobs, go jump on something sharp. Sell the team. Take the money you got from selling the team and donate to someplace to save your soul. And then go fuck yourself again. End of rant.
Wow. This is actually really powerful for me because I'm just realizing I think that might be the first time I've ever heard you swear.
I swear sometimes in passing, but I'm not rarely swear in anger. I got out of that habit when I coached youth soccer. You have to not swear when you have a whole bunch of 11-year-olds hanging around and the parents on the other sideline. But yeah, no, just Jeremy Jacobs is a flaming dumpster of shit.
Has there been a backlash in Boston?
Oh yeah, huge, massive.
As there should be.
I mean, absolutely. And it sucks because this team is really good. And again, the season, who knows if the season is going to continue. I think they'll figure out a way at some point. And there's tons of likable players on the Bruins. Mm-hmm. And, Patrice Bergeron may be the most universally beloved player in the entire league. And Brad Marchand is the opposite of that. But it's so frustrating as a Bruins fan having just ownership, because the rest of the owners in Boston, up until recently, the Red Sox owners were pretty good, and they've just gone off the deep end at this point. But the Celtics ownership and the Patriots ownership is pretty darn good. So we're used to having some pretty good ownership, but we've just been stuck with Jeremy Jacobs. The White Blackhawks had Bill Wirtz for all those years, who's equally a pile of crap. And finally got rid of him, and things turned around. We've been doing pretty well, but he needs to go away. I don't know what we have to do to get rid of him, but he needs to be out of the league. And he's been needing to be out of the league for 25 years at this point. So if this doesn't force a hand and bring an uprising, I don't know exactly will. But again, for those who didn't hear me, Jeremy Jacobs sucks on every possible level, down to molecular level. Wow. Is how bad Jeremy Jacobs is as a human being.
Damn, I don't know how to segue to the first sort of bit of news of the day.
So Travis Frederick.
Yeah, Travis Frederick. Yeah, because as simple as that. I didn't. Maybe you should be the host and I should be sort of the person you're calling. I don't know, because you're segueing much better than I am.
No. Believe me, first of all, I don't have the infrastructure, and secondly, I don't want the commitment. So, what you're doing some great stuff, man. Coco Beware interview was awesome.
Oh, thanks.
So
I appreciate that. I had a lot of fun with that.
Yeah. So, keep it up. I don't want you up.
All good. So yeah, Travis Frederick, another sudden retirement, but I think at this point, no retirement anymore in the NFL is sudden.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. But Frederick also had additional health problems that were not football related, which definitely factored into what happened there.
Which he did cite in his farewell post on Twitter. Well, not farewell to Twitter, but farewell to football. I can't, for the life of me, remember the name of that syndrome. It's the only time I've ever heard of it. But it is a nerve.
It's actually the one. It's actually the syndrome that my dad died of complications from.
Oh, okay.
So it's Guillain-Barré. So what Guillain-Barré is essentially, it's a virus that stops your brain from communicating with the rest of your body. So in my father's case, my dad, when he passed away, was 84, and this was, 2012, so 7.5 years ago. My dad basically walked into his walk-in closet to get a shirt down off the shelf and fell down and couldn't get back up. So he ended up in the hospital. It took him a while. So Guillain-Barré is a 1 in 100,000 person thing. And it probably would have taken my dad 2 years to learn how to walk again at 84. And I think his body was just like, forget this, and cut out. And he passed away in the morning. He was supposed to be transferred to the rehab facility. But yeah, Guillain-Barré is just it's a weird virus that literally interferes with your brain's ability to communicate with the rest of the body that somehow you can get through with physical therapy, and I've never quite understood that part. So for him to come back from that at all as quickly as he did is kind of unbelievable. And
be a Pro Bowler in his last season at that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Probably
I think Vinny said he's probably going to be on the all-decade team in his position.
Could be. It could very well be. He's going to sort of have to be if he's going to have a really legitimate Hall of Fame shot, I think.
Yeah.
Well, eventually,
that's probably true.
Though who knows when they're actually going to put out the all-decade team.
Oh, it's in the middle of next month, allegedly. I don't think that has changed. I think it's about a week before the draft, because they announced today that the draft is still taking place at the same time. Because the GM panel voted 6-1, whoever's on that GM panel, that they want the draft moved because nobody's had the ability to do physicals or in-person interviews or any of that stuff. And at least it's like, nah, we're going to do it at the same time, just without fans. So I think Goodell was pushing for that just so he didn't get booed the whole time. But
and the WNBA draft is continuing also for the two fans of that sport. So
yes, well, they're more than two, I'd say. I mean, yeah, there are probably not as many as the NFL, but there are not that many people, I'd imagine, who care about the WNBA draft.
You're right. There's more than two fans. I'm forgetting all their girlfriends.
Wow. I was trying to save you, man, but if you want to grab a bigger weight and sink, that's up to you.
No, I'm gonna run with that one. It's mad respect for the athletes. Just you talk about like a mad weight like that. If that isn't a big weight that's been around the yoke of the NBA for how many years, but props to them for wanting to keep it going. They don't have to.
No. I've always wondered if they lowered the rim in the women's in the WNBA. If they lowered to 9 feet, a whole lot more women would be able to dunk. And I wonder if that would increase its popularity, even though it isn't exactly the same on everything else.
I don't think so.
More action plays, because fundamentally the women's game is fantastic, but it's hard to see a huge breakaway layup. You know what I mean? Not even right on the rim layup. Easy for me to say. Just having a few breakaway jams would probably help that product a bit.
At the end of the day, everything's star driven. There just has to be somebody who is going to transfix that. Who would have thought that a few years ago that one of the biggest names, biggest women in sports would be in mixed martial arts, and that happened with Ronda Rousey.
Yeah, I mean, that is true.
I mean, it's the right person will take that where it's got to go. It just hasn't been anyone yet for whatever reason. Brittany Griner, phenomenal player, but people don't pay to see her.
Right. I mean, Sue Bird, Swin Cash, Tamika Holtzclaw, Rebecca Lobo,
Diana
Taurasi. All those ladies from Diana Taurasi. There you go. Yeah. All those, and I'm sure there are tons more we're missing. Mm-hmm. Like all those women who dominated the NCAA tournaments over these years have gone in there and nobody's necessarily cared, which is going back to another tragedy from earlier this year, which is why Kobe Bryant, the Bryant air helicopter crash may have been incredibly tragic, not only in general, but also for the WNBA.
Right.
Because if she had made it, if Gianna had made it to the WNBA with Kobe sitting there the entire time, how much cooler does the league become? Instantaneously
more cool. I don't think you can put the right.
More cool.
I don't think there's the right integer that you can come up with on how more popular that would have been. Not only that, even just the way he was sort of backing that. I'm blanking on the name of the one person. I think she played at Oregon or somewhere in the Pacific Northwest, who would have dominated the tournament this year.
Oh, you know what? I can't tell you because I honestly have been following not at all on college basketball this year.
So,
I actually don't know the answer to that
question. So like she was even speaking at Kobe's memorial. And it's not like, and I know I rag on the WNBA. I think I more rag on it because it's just such a business disaster. And I hate watching a league that I love prop it up. And I wish it would sort of like do well on its own. And it doesn't, and it won't. I shouldn't say it won't. It just needs the right star to get people to care.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, golf, same situation for Tiger. Mm-hmm. I mean, golf had more of a history of people caring. It had Nicklaus and Trevino and going all the way back to Sam Snead and Bobby Jones and stuff like that. But golf was not doing well before Tiger showed up. Women's tennis wasn't doing great before the Williams sisters showed up. I mean, men's tennis in America has basically been down since Andre and Pete Sampras retired, and that was 15 years ago at this point.
Right.
So you need some sort of champion to come through and capture the imagination and excite people. And the WNBA just hasn't quite had that person. That's honestly part of baseball's problem, too, right now, because their most marketable star, their greatest player is Mike Trout. And Mike Trout, I'm not sure, has vocal cords.
Yeah, he went to the Tim Duncan School of Self-Promotion.
Yeah, like... And without winning any championships, which is a problem.
Well, there's that, yeah.
Tim Duncan won a lot of championships is fantastic. And the big fundamental and all that stuff, you appreciated him because you saw him in big games all the time. When's the last time you saw Mike Trout in a game that mattered?
Let's see. Was he in that game with the Angels and the Mariners for the Naked Gun? No, I don't think so.
I think he's the one who tackled Reggie Jackson. I'm not sure.
I must kill the Queen. Reggie was a fine actor. I don't know why he wasn't nominated for anything.
Hey, Bill Belichick just got nominated for a sports Emmy. I don't know if you saw that.
No.
For his work on the NFL's 100 Greatest Players.
Okay, well, all right.
So, you never know.
You never know. You never know.
I mean, if such a scintillating media personality as Bill Belichick can nominate, I don't see why a zombified Reggie Jackson can't.
Why not? Stranger things have happened. Though I'll always maintain that the greatest athlete performance in a movie was King Kong Bundy in the Richard Pryor film Moving.
Okay, I was going to go Kim Neely as Seabass in Dumb and Dumber, but...
Well, I'm a little bit more obscure. I was one of those guys who would have voted for Parasite.
Oh, okay. Honestly, the only one movie I saw last year because I have little kids was Knives Out, which was fantastic. But Parasite's on the list at some point.
Yeah, so. Go figure. And I think I've stopped me if I've already said this. So I have a wife who loves all these Korean dramas. So then we're trying to watch all the stuff before the Oscars because she makes me watch the Oscars anyway. So I might as well watch all the movies while she's looking at the outfits. And so I wanted to watch Parasite, and then she found out it's not a chick flick like all the other Korean dramas she watched, so she wouldn't watch it. So that was the only nominated film I didn't see.
Interesting.
Yeah, go figure. But we've definitely segued
Travis
off.
Frederick, right?
Yeah, Travis Frederick. He definitely needs the all-decade team to sort of get there. Was he dominant enough at a good enough time? I think, there was, 2 rushing titles that happened with him.
Mm-hmm.
Dak Prescott, depending on how he evolves, that'll help him out. I think he's not a terrible choice down the road, but he's going to get swept under the rug somehow, unless he gets that all decade.
Well, I mean, I think that his first problem is it always matters who you're up against, right?
Right.
And Marshall Yanda has already retired this year. And if it comes down between Yanda and Frederick as the person who's going to get on the ballot, it's probably going to be Yanda.
As it should be.
Right. So, I mean, once you get buried to start, it's harder to pull back out.
Mm-hmm.
So that's his issue. That and the shortness of his career, even though he was fantastic his entire career. So it does help that he played for Dallas. So that also makes a difference. If he was playing for the Cincinnati Bengals, the answer would be no. So.
Yes. Well, the duo of Anthony Munoz.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to keep bringing up the Bengals because the Bengals have been around since 1967 or 73 or whatever, and they have one player in the Hall of Fame. One. They've only had 3 people who've ever played for them, but one person would have gone in as a Bengal, Anthony Munoz, and that's it. And they came through that franchise.
Which is also crazy considering they've actually been to the Super Bowl twice.
Yeah. They've been there twice, but like every time you hear a Steelers fan or a Raiders fan or a Cowboys fan or a Broncos fan complain about how much the league or the Hall hates their team, just point them towards Cincinnati. I know the team hasn't been great for large stretches of time, but they haven't been to the point where they should be completely and utterly devoid of Hall of Famers.
Now I'm going to come up with a great segue. Since we've pointed to Cincinnati, there was a great WKRP in Cincinnati episode where Herb Tarlick finally landed this big account, and it was for a funeral home.
Okay.
And so when they were sort of like trying to come up with a great jingle, it was hoorah, hoorah, which sort of ties in with the Death Watch, because 4 people died this week.
Yeah, people who are not in halls but are at least adjacent to what we would be talking about.
I think, they're in some of these guys are in Hall of Fames. Kenny Rogers passed away.
Yeah, Kenny Rogers. I always think of the Rock Hall, but clearly he's in the Country Music Hall of Fame.
Yes.
But yeah, I think of him as the Rock Hall. That was sad. I honestly can't say I was particularly surprised. That man has not looked well for a while. But that was.
And you're not referring to his plastic surgery.
Yeah. But honestly, in the middle of a global pandemic, seems a good time to fold them. So.
Oh, Jesus.
Sorry, but honestly, like just looking around, like this might as well just take off now. And also from the music world, actually passing away today was the former drummer of both Ministry and REM. Bill Raeflin, who was not inducted with REM. He was the drummer the last decade with the band. He was a Seattle guy who was in a ton of the different groups, who passed away at the too young age of 59 today as well. So,
do you know what he died of?
Give me a second. I'll let you know. He passed away of cancer.
Cancer, okay.
So.
And then the sports world lost 2 today. Curly Neal, Harlem Globetrotters, has passed on.
Yeah, one of the when he retired, he was the 5th Globetrotter who'd ever had his number retired. I'm a little surprised at the way the Basketball Hall of Fame works that he's not in the Basketball Hall of Fame. But Curly Neal played like 6,000 games with the Globetrotters. and was one of the most popular Globetrotters ever. I remember first seeing him on Scooby-Doo, as a matter of fact.
Well, they had their own cartoon, too, I think. Also, I think, produced by the fine people at Hanna-Barbera.
Yeah, there's a crossover episode between the two of them. So, he passed away at, I believe he was 72 today. And then you had one of your favorites who's not in the baseball hall as well.
Yeah, although before I get there, actually, my favorite memory of Curly Neal was not sort of in that Hanna-Barbera thing, but something very close to that, when they visited Gilligan's Island and competed against the robots.
I don't think I saw that episode.
Well, it wasn't an episode. It was a TV movie done sometime after.
Okay, then. I didn't realize there were robots on Gilligan's Island. My favorite part about Gilligan's Island is the professor invented a radio but couldn't come up with a boat. So.
Or some kind of spackle.
Yeah, anything like that.
I mean, the boat was there. It just fixed the damn hole. Although I think they sort of figured it out perfectly in a Cheers episode. It was Rebecca's dad who got sucked into sort of just watching television with the Cheers gang and just said, if they shot Gilligan, they would have gotten off this island already. Which...
I miss Cheers. Anyway.
But yes.
And so the last one.
The toy cannon, Jimmy Wynn, sabermetrician's dream in terms of his offense. Two-time leader in walks. Only had a career batting average of, I want to say, 250. But, it's all about how you're getting on base. 5'10", built like a pipe cleaner, well over 250 home runs.
Yeah, I saw a couple of people say online today that he's the greatest player ever to appear on a baseball Hall of Fame ballot and never get a vote.
Yes. Yeah, I'd agree with that.
So, yeah, it was. I mean, there's a lot of weird stuff going on this week for obvious reasons. Coronavirus has taken out people left and right here, but it's been a particularly noteworthy week for our podcast here. So.
Yeah, and just every week you think that it wouldn't be, but it is. There's always something to sort of talk about. But then I gave you a challenge, though, for what we were talking about last week. So I didn't know that there'd be stuff to talk about. Who knew?
Who knew?
So,
but I'm ready for your challenge.
Okay, so the challenge for those who didn't listen last week, it's to come up with 5 people, 5 NBA players, who, if the NBA season is completely wiped out, will be affected the most by that in terms of their chances to get into Springfield.
Okay, so why don't you start, and then I'll explain a little bit of my rationale. But why don't you give me your first, since you're the host, and we'll go from there.
Okay, so obviously I'm staying close to home, or my original home, with the Toronto Raptors, and the way I sort of looked at everything is who would really need another championship ring to sort of help their cause, or another deep good run in the playoffs, and I went with Kyle Lowry. Lowry I think he just got his 6th All-Star game appearance, and there was a few articles that after he won the NBA title, people were saying, well, is he a potential Hall of Famer? And there were a lot of people just sort of laughing at that. Well, Lowry's got a pretty good resume building up. He's in his early 30s, and he's still just as good. The Raptors did not fall apart like a lot of people, myself included, because I did not see them being this good. And would they have won the title? I don't know, but strange things happen.
Stranger things have happened than that.
Absolutely. Because the favored team doesn't always win. So for me, one of the people who might get hurt the most is Kyle Lowry.
I think Lowry's a good choice. So when I went and looked at this, and I'm going to be honest about this, so a couple of the players that I am going to have on my list are people I can almost guarantee are going to be Hall of Famers, but their level of Hall of Fame, taking the Bill Simmons
pyramid,
basketball pyramid,
yes.
I think their level of Hall of Fame is to be affected. But Kyle Lowry is somebody who I took a good long look at. He was one of the people I seriously considered, but I thought you might actually bring him up, so I stayed away from him.
You thought correctly.
Lowry's got over 1,300 points. He's got the NBA championship, of which he was. Everyone can talk about how much that was oh my God, his name is around my head with the Clippers.
The Claw. Kawhi.
Kawhi, thank you.
Yep.
How much that was Kawhi championship, but Kawhi didn't do that alone. Kyle Lowry was fantastic, pretty much all the way through those playoffs last year. And he's someone who was kind of, let's be honest, Toronto in many ways is not exactly the epicenter of the NBA.
No.
Even though it's a big city in Canada and the only Canadian team in the league. I mean, Vince Carter, who we've talked about last week, couldn't wait to get out of there. Tracy McGrady didn't want to stay there. He brought a team. He was true to his school, played there for, 6-7 years before, because he was in Memphis. I remember, I think it was in Houston at one point, too.
Right.
But he was pretty much a heart and soul of the Raptors, and Kawhi came in, and they won it together. But, yeah, him getting another championship or getting all the way, leading that team to the NBA, at least Eastern Conference semis or the NBA Finals, would have made a huge difference in his ability to get in. I still think ultimately he probably gets in, but with the second championship, I think there's no doubt.
Yeah, and also, too, I think sometimes people aren't even aware. He was actually not that far away from being one of the few players, although his teammate did become that, to win a world championship and an NBA title in the same year. Actually, it was Marc Gasol did of Spain and then of the Raptors. So if Lowry would have won that, the world title with Team USA, that would have been pretty interesting. But yeah, that was my first choice. Okay.
Yeah, the other thing, so when I started this list, by the way, I was looking at, just to give myself an idea of, I went with DVOA for historically off of Basketball Reference, just to get myself an idea of where everybody stands. And Lowry, by the way, is 63rd all time. Now, DVOA for Basketball Reference only goes back to 1972. So you're not going to have Oscar Robertson and Bill Russell and all those guys on there because most of their careers were over by then. Jerry West, a lot of those guys. But in terms of DVOA, he's 63rd all time since 1972, right ahead of Anthony Davis and behind Alex English. So we're like right in the zone here where, particularly the Basketball Hall, if he gets a little bit of a bump, he's very much in the conversation.
So who's your first guy?
So I'm actually going for my first guy I'm going to start with the best guy on my list. And again, this guy is going to be a Hall of Famer, but I think his entire career trajectory changes if they win the title this year. And that's Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Okay.
So I know he's one of the best players. He has an MVP. But if he led a team to, let's say, 68 wins, which is entirely possible with the Bucks, goes to the championship and beats LeBron at his young age, we're talking a whole different stratosphere for the rest of his career. Now, he has the possibility of getting there already, but he jumps a whole 1 or 2 levels potentially in the pyramid by winning a championship this year. And I honestly think also this season being canceled may hurt the city of Milwaukee more than anything else because they've been crying out for a team like this for years. I mean, they haven't won the championship since, 75, 76, or sometime in the mid-70s.
Yeah, sometime. What was that? Because that would have been when Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was still there. They didn't win one out without him, I don't believe.
I don't think Kareem even was Kareem at that point.
Yeah, well, Lou Alcindor, but I was trying to be respectful.
No, my point is that's how long ago it was.
Yeah.
And they've been kind of a little brother to Chicago for a while. So yeah, they won in 1971. But they've been a little brother to Chicago for quite a while, and it basically makes them a player again in the NBA, which is something they haven't really been for years and years and years. I honestly think Giannis winning a championship this year, again, I think he's ultimately going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer without any issue. But even if he won the championship and then retired in a year or two, which he's not going to do, but if he had, you'd still have a very good chance of making the basketball hole right out. So I think just when I'm looking at this, I was looking at teams that might have a chance to win the championship.
Yeah, that was my first criteria also.
Yeah, and I think on the Bucks, I don't think Chris Middleton. Maybe Chris Middleton has something about it, but honestly, it's Giannis and what level of the pyramid he actually gets to. Because if he wins one, and then he may even stay in Milwaukee and bring other people with him, and now all of a sudden Milwaukee becomes sort of a power. That would be just completely altering a franchise. Would make a massive impact on his building getting as well.
Yeah, I didn't pick Giannis because I figured he's going to get in anyway. But yeah, in terms of legacy, you're 1,000% right. And what that would do for that, I'm sure there is article upon article about that written in whatever the Milwaukee paper is. I don't know what it is. I don't subscribe to any Milwaukee publication, not since I canceled the Shots Brewery one. Thank you for getting that one. I wasn't too sure if anyone would.
It's the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, just so you know.
Okay, so yeah, you're dead on right. As obviously as a Raptors fan, I don't necessarily cheer for anyone else in the East, but I love sports cities, and Milwaukee cheers their own.
They absolutely do.
Yeah, so
they do.
Yeah, mad respect for that. So yeah, that was one I had, and then I sort of took him off from that. My second guy, I'm going in your corner of the world, Kemba Walker.
Yeah, Kemba was the guy I was thinking of starting with.
Okay.
I have a couple of Celtics on my list, or one Celtic, one former Celtic.
Okay.
But yeah, Kemba is distinctly somebody who a big run in the playoffs and getting to a championship, at least the Eastern Conference Finals, or better yet, the NBA Finals, makes a huge difference in how he is perceived.
Well, not only that, then he proved that although I don't know that he's necessarily a better point guard, but then he did something that Kyrie Irving couldn't do, or decided not to do.
Well, yeah. Kyrie in the Milwaukee series last year was pretty darn poor. And honestly, Irving's got the championship, but they're pretty close a lot of ways in stats and everything else along those lines. Going back to DVOA, Giannis is actually number 106, Irving's 112, and Walker's 124. So it's him having his own team. It's not his team; it's Jason Tatum's team,
right?
But just being one of the three most important players who brings the Celtics franchise to an Eastern Conference Final or an NBA Final. I don't think the Celtics team is ready to beat whoever comes out of the West, which is likely the Lakers. But either the Lakers or Clippers. I don't think the Celtics team's ready to beat either of them yet.
Mm-hmm.
But him getting there would make a big difference after all those years languishing away in Charlotte. So.
Yeah, it's like people are finally realizing just how good this player was or is. I don't know why he's past tense on Kemba Walker. The basketball's coming back. It's coming back. It's coming back, I tell you.
It's entirely possible. But, we've talked about this before because your college stuff matters too. And very few people have a better college resume than Kemba Walker, bringing that UConn team to the championship out of basically nowhere.
Especially nowadays. You're not building any college resumes anymore.
Right. He won that Big East when that Big East tournament was ridiculous by winning 5 games in 5 days in Madison Square Garden, and then won straight all the way through to the NCAA championship. That's a run that almost definitely no college player is ever going to go on again.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you're right, nobody sticks around long enough.
So I think I can foreshadow who you've already got because I've got him too. Because you said a former Celtic.
Okay.
One of my guys here. So my third, I'm guessing, is also your third, Rajon Rondo.
Oh, I thought I was going to go deep on that one. Yes, no, Rajon, exactly.
Yeah, because for me, Rondo's peak is long gone. But if Rondo gets a second ring and he shows off some of that, because he can still carry a team for a few moments and do that on the big stage. Rondo needs this. He needs this bad.
Yeah. He's down in looking at where he is at DVOA. Again, DVOA isn't the be-all, end-all, but just the two guys around him are Dale Ellis and Luol Deng right in front of him, and Paul Pressey and Steve Francis right after him. So he clearly needs some help in order to get going. I mean, his career points average, let me see, where did I see that? His points average is 10.2 for his career. That hardly seems high enough. Now he averages 8.3 assists, which is super high. He's really good as a rebounder, as a point guard in particular. He's good on steals. But having a championship with the Garnett Pierce Celtics and another one with LeBron Davis Lakers, I think is something that he definitely needs to get into the conversation.
Especially if he shines or shined, depending on whether this is ever going to happen or not, which he's still got in him, not at a long period of time. And I think people forget in that Celtics win, when they talk about the big three, I don't think they win without Rondo. Rondo was that good. And it still kind of bothers me when people look back at that and just give the credit to those three guys when Rondo was carrying a lot of those games. Yeah,
and when all the other guys had left, I mean, that was Rondo's team in Boston, but he wasn't ready for it. I think happens, and that's something that's going to probably count against him as well. His inability to really lead a team on his own is something that has to come up when he gets discussed in the room. So,
So my fourth guy is a teammate of his. We touched on him last week, Dwight Howard. Again, if you go by the Bill Simmons pyramid, he's probably already in. But if he wins a title and is a contributing force into that, that shakes a lot of demons that he has.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that too. When I went at the end of last week, the first person that sprung to mind was Howard. But I figured that since we'd already talked about him, that would be someone who came up, so I steered away from him.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, having him win a championship, even in his reduced role, would be a wonder for his ability to get in.
Yeah,
because I mean he's 60th in DVOA.
Yeah, and we're not even a reduced role. I mean, he's still contributing. It's not like when Juwan Howard won a title with Miami Heat, and he was just there to just basically tell everyone. So tell us again when you came up with baggy pants.
Yeah, right.
Who's your fourth guy?
So he's a very good choice. He was not one I chose to seriously consider, but I figured he would come up on your list. I was trying to guess what your list was a little bit.
Oh, okay.
So I stayed away from Lowry and I stayed away from Howard, just so we weren't agreeing on all five, because you and I have a tendency to agree on things.
Except when the rock stuff comes on, then I always lose.
Well, true. So my fourth, actually, again, is a pyramid discussion here, and it's his teammate at the same position.
Yeah,
Anthony Davis.
I had him and crossed him off at the last moment.
Yeah. So you and I flip-flopped, because you had Davis who went that way.
Yeah.
Davis again, real early in his career, probably a dominant big man, one of the toughest guys possibly to guard in the league, but the way he left New Orleans wasn't the greatest, let's put it that way. And if you remember the way Kawhi left San Antonio, that wasn't necessarily the greatest either. But then Kawhi turned around and won a championship and vaulted himself up the pantheon. If Davis does the same thing, though, everything that happened in New Orleans gets completely forgotten. And being on the team with LeBron was probably his best chance to get there. So, I mean, clearly, I think that he's going to be a Hall of Famer without it. But again, it's the same thing in Giannis. It's the pantheon jump.
Yeah.
Like where are we going? How many levels in this pyramid are we moving up? And it's possible he could go from right now, he had this career for the rest of the time. He's probably a level 4, level 3 guy out of the 5-level thing. But if he wins the championship, now we're talking level 2, and then with the opportunity of going up. So I honestly think that for him overall, is he a Hall of Famer? If he has just an average career from here on out, yes. Is he possibly a much higher Hall of Famer if he wins this one and maybe another? 100%.
And I think people might be sort of forgetting, LeBron's 35 with a lot of mileage.
Right.
He's having a phenomenal year. I'm kind of hesitant to call it a bit of a comeback year, but it kind of is. By his standards.
Well, I mean, last year, I kind of feel like LeBron paced himself because there was no way that team was going anywhere. And it didn't make sense for him to kill whatever he had left in an effort to try and drag the corpse of the Lakers team into a first-round defeat in the playoffs. Like, that doesn't do anything for LeBron. He's better off missing the playoffs altogether and getting the rest over the summer than having to get swept in the first round by Golden State, or I can't remember who the first seed was last year, and just basically being embarrassed. He was better off just shutting it down. So I kind of feel that's where he was last year, at least. But
still, the clock is ticking.
Oh, 100% it's ticking. Although he and Tom Brady right now are the two guys who should be worse than they are. And Brady had a down year last year. But like Brady and Breeze too, they're all doing things that nobody their age has necessarily done. Like 35-year-old, the amount of minutes that LeBron has played should be on his way down and out and a severely complimentary player. The only reason he's a complimentary player at all is because he's got Anthony Davis on the team. Other than that, he's still the driving force of the Lakers.
Absolutely. He's having a phenomenal year. And, he's already at that pyramid. But, yeah, I mean, if the Lakers were to win or the championship with AD sort of like doing what we all know AD can do and sort of take over some of those games, which he definitely could do, yeah, absolutely. It vaults him up that pyramid, 1,000%.
Yeah, just by the way, I'm sorry, and VORP, which is actually, I kept saying DVOA, but it's actually VORP. Mm-hmm. And in VORP, LeBron is number 1 with 133.17. Number 2 is Jordan at 116.08. He's 17 points better than Jordan, who's second place. And third place is John Stockton at 106.5. Those are the only 3 guys over 100. And LeBron's got a 17-point lead on Jordan, who's got a 10-point lead on Stockton. So he was, by at least that measurement, is the greatest player since 1973. So
Stockton wouldn't have been one of those guys that would have pegged at 3. Who's my last? My last person is staying in Los Angeles, but the different team. I have Paul George, who's had, unlike LeBron, not a great year. He's been struggling a little bit, but he hasn't had that title yet. He wasn't an all-star this year. But if they win the whole thing, then it's that ring he didn't have, and it makes up for no all-star. Because last year was his best year in basketball. This year, it hasn't quite worked out that way.
Yeah.
But I think Paul George needs that extra something.
Yeah. That is... Yeah, that's going to be interesting, too, because this was supposed to be the Los Angeles versus Los Angeles year. And when they got Kawhi and Paul George before the Lakers got Anthony Davis, it was the Clippers going to have their chance to be the big brother for the first time in a while. And them getting through that Lakers team and getting to the championship makes a massive difference for Paul George. I actually had him as my 5th, but I had an alternate just in case we agreed on too many. So I'm going to go with somebody else as my last one.
Okay, so you had him too, also then.
I had him as 5A. So I'll give you 5B. I actually had 6 as a cheat.
Okay.
Just so we had something to talk about. But I just want you to think a second about the Clippers. Mm-hmm. So the Clippers have George and Kawhi, and both of them have this season and next that they're guaranteed to be on the Clippers, and that is it. So the Clippers, when they did all this, they gave up how many draft picks to Oklahoma City to get George? Like 4 number 1 draft picks? I got to actually remember. And they basically went all in on these 2 guys. and these two guys can be gone at the end of next season. They had 2 years, and they may be losing one of them. That was a franchise-altering move that could completely blow up in their faces if they don't even get a shot at the playoffs on this.
Which can only happen to the Clippers.
Yeah, well, yes. Yeah. They have been around as the Buffalo Braves since, I don't know when that was, they've been around forever as the Buffalo Braves. They have never made the finals.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of, because they left Buffalo in 78?
They became the San Diego Clippers. Hold on, let's figure out. When did Clippers leave Buffalo? Yeah, they left in 78. They left in 78.
Woohoo, 10 points for the chairman.
Yes, good for you. Congratulations. Have another sip of water.
Damn it.
The Braves were formed in 1970. So they were there for 8 years before moving on. But yeah, they've been around since 1970, so that's 50 years at this point, and they have 0 even appearances in the NBA Finals. That's not good.
So who's your 5B then?
So 5B, I'm going to go to another former Celtic then.
Okay.
And that is former Celtic, former Hawk, Al Horford.
Oh, yes. Okay.
So Horford has been a senior statesman now for a couple of years. He got to the Eastern Conference Finals with the Celtics. I don't remember. He didn't get there with the Hawks. The Hawks had that one really good year, but I don't think they made the East Conference Finals. I can honestly say I don't remember all the Hawks seasons. But Horford was brought to Philadelphia to be the last piece of that championship puzzle. And if the season standings ended the way that they were right now, it would be the Celtics and the Sixers in the first round, which would be fantastic basketball, but terrible for the Celtics, because that is the one team in the East they just do not match up against at all. So it's entirely possible that the Sixers get through the Celtics in that first round. And now you're in that second round, and who knows what happens with the Raptors, because I'm presuming the Raptors are beating the Nets. But who knows what gets through, and they could get to an Eastern Conference Final. And again, if they made an Eastern Conference Final, or they made it all the way to the championship with how good that team should be, because honestly, the Sixers are probably the most disappointing team in the NBA this year. And they're still a playoff team, but between where they should be and where they are. Mm-hmm. But him getting there and getting to East Conference Finals or a finals appearance, at least, makes a big difference in the way he is perceived. He took a team that couldn't quite get there last year, particularly if they get to the finals. I mean, that Kawhi shot that bounced to the rim 47 times and fell in was crushing to that Sixers team. And if he's the guy who gets them over the top and gets them there, then we're having another different conversation if they somehow get a championship or somehow get through. So.
No, that's a good one. Actually, I didn't even think of that. That's a very good one.
Yeah, I mean, in Boston, he was derided by some of the sports talk hosts as being average Al, particularly Lou Merloni, who, of course, made the Red Sox mainly because there's Nomar Garcia-Barrett's best friend. But he would ride him as being just not that great a player. But the Celtics team over the last couple of years was entirely different when Horford was in and Horford was out. So I think that combined with he's got a NCAA championship as well. Does he actually have 2? I know Florida won 2. Is he on both teams? I don't actually remember that off the top of my head.
I think he's only got the 1.
I think he only has the 1 as well. But anyway, he has 1, and that's going to count for when he gets into the nomination discussion as well. So him having another sort of playoff skin in the wall makes a big difference, because he's in year. How many years is this now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You're 12 in the NBA. 7,000 points. He's got 5 All-Star appearances. So he's 81st in DVO in VORP. So I think that he needs another run. He may need another run or two in order to get the real consideration. But having the rest of the season and the ability to get to the playoffs and do something, I think makes a big difference.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a really good one. I'm surprised actually I didn't even come up with that. My sort of honorable mention would have been to any NCAA coach who wins the tournament, unless he's already in the hall.
Mm. Yeah, well, I mean, who's the coach at Dayton?
I have no idea.
Because that Dayton team was ridiculous. I didn't watch much college basketball, but I watched the Dayton team, and they had a legitimate shot at winning the NCAAs. Dayton basketball coach. Oh, it's Anthony Grant. Okay. But yeah, that Dayton team was absolutely fantastic. And so Anthony Grant's been around for a while. And if Dayton ends up winning an NCAA tournament, that almost automatically vaults you to the front of the line.
Oh, for sure.
Winning from, I mean, if that half-court shot went in for Butler against Duke, I don't know, what is that now, 8-9 years ago, Brad Stevens was probably a Hall of Famer at 34 or whatever he was.
Oh, my God. Is it that long ago?
Yeah, he's been at the Celtics now 7 years, I believe.
And on the plus side, on opening day, the Red Sox are still in first. I'm doing well in the bet. There has been no plunking of any Astros, so that's going well for me.
Are you sure? Just no official plunkings.
Well, I mean, it would have to be official hit by bat, no, or hit by pitch, hit by bat.
Although the EA Sports baseball game did dunk on Altuve today because they released the game, and they had under Altuve it called him a homebody, that he hits much better at home than he does on the road. Pretty funny. So that doesn't technically count as a hit, but it made me feel good. So, and by the way, again, as a Red Sox fan, this season is completely lost. The Red Sox, the fact that nothing has come out from that investigation yet makes me feel that what the Red Sox did, what has been rumored, wasn't as bad as the Astros. Okay, and I'm not going to give the Red Sox a pass on this because they're already on high alert from the Apple Watch thing back in 2017. So if they get busted at all, they need to have the book thrown at them. But I do think it's interesting that we haven't heard a punishment yet for them at this point. Because there's nothing else baseball really has to do right now. They might as well just finish the investigation and throw it out there. So, although I guess it would be bad because there's nothing else to talk about.
We'll always come up with something. If the news sort of like remains slow, I'll give you sort of a task on Tuesday. I'm sort of thinking might be it'll be a look back on the NFL season. Which 5 players did the most to hurt their Hall of Fame chances, excluding Antonio Brown?
I was going to say, can't we just have him in all 5 spots?
Even with like the 5 rats in my top 50 Florida Panthers. Yeah, something like that. But yeah, I mean, we could definitely talk about Mr. Brown, but yeah.
I was still upset your top 50 Florida Panthers wasn't just Scott Mellenby at least 25 times.
Well, I've got plenty of time to work on my revisions. Actually, I've been working on a lot of my baseball revisions because by the time I get something up, then it's like then a couple years will pass, and and all the other things that I've got to do. The Yankees one was super easy, thank God.
Yeah. So, are there any teams you haven't done yet?
Oh, yeah, quite a few. I actually haven't even done my Blue Jays yet. In baseball, let's see. There's a few that have been sent to the webmaster that he's got that he'll get up soon. I
have to ask on the Blue Jays. Does Rance Mulliniks make the team?
Possibly. He was there long enough and on a young team. He very well could.
Also had the thickest glasses of anybody on a Topps baseball card of all time.
Yeah, that sounds right. I always remember actually his platoon partner, Garth Orge, more for the weirdest batting stance that I've ever seen.
It's funny because as a kid, when we used to play wiffle ball, I actually used to imitate Pat Borders' stance with the hands spread apart on the bat because I felt it gave me better control when I was swinging the wiffle ball and baseball. So I actually had Pat Borders' batting stance that I completely stole from watching him playing the Red Sox on. So,
2-time World Series winner and former World Series MVP.
There you go. And the hell of a catcher. Like, not a Hall of Famer. Jason Varitek's not a Hall of Fame either, but he's a hell of a catcher. Borders is the guy you'd want to go to war with. Carter's got behind that list, though, too. Joe Carter?
I would imagine so. Carter was basically a poor man's Jim Rice when you look at his stats over the whole career. Good power, poor bat, like not a great batting average, a liability in defensively. But Joe Carter,
but he had a personality, and Rice didn't.
Well, again, there's that. Joe Carter, I mean, I'm sure it's still the case, but I know he's still doing now. When I left Canada, he was still doing some commercials that would appear on Sportsnet. I mean, that home run he hit will always sort of that'll make him iconic in the city of Toronto forever.
Yeah, of course. Actually, the first baseball game I ever went to was a Red Sox-Indians game where Joe Carter won it by hitting a home run in the top of the ninth for the Indians. And Johnny Pesky gave me a baseball, which I then never saved and just used with the rest of the baseballs I had because I was 6 and didn't know any better. But yeah, that was the first baseball I ever went to. Joe Carter basically, it was tied. I remember the final score was 7-5, I think. And Carter hit it was tied in the bottom of the 8th. And then Carter hit a home run on the top of the 9th for the Indians, and they ended up winning. So, my first live sports memory is actually Joe Carter beating my hometown team. So, there you go.
It got me wondering. I'm trying to remember what my first Jays game was. I want to say against Texas. Yeah, it was. I don't remember what year. I know Toronto lost. I couldn't tell you the score. But I remember it was Jim Clancy pitching for Toronto because pretty much back then it was Dave Stieb and whoever else they could scrub together, and Jim Clancy was the number 2 scrub. And he gave up a hit in the first at-bat, and I remember someone saying, well, there goes his no-hitter, which has been a line I've used every time I watch a baseball game.
I think I've told you I played somewhat competitive soccer for many, many years, but I played outside defender, and I never scored a goal that counted. I actually scored a goal once that would have advanced us a whole another division, but I was offsides by apparently half a step. But I never scored a goal that counted, but any time a new guy would score a goal, I'd be like, hey, congrats, you just passed me on the all-time scoring list. It was like a running joke for everybody on the team. So, yeah. Oh, hey. Trip down memory lane. I look forward to the Blue Jays one. So how many have you actually done at this point?
Oh God, I want to say 20.
Oh, it's only 20?
Yeah, because a lot of them will just sort of like be random. Hockey, I've only got to 4 or 5. Football, there's a lot more coming. Basketball, I think there's only been 6 or 7. Okay. Baseball's the easiest one because when they've got their off season is everyone else seems to be going.
Right.
And vice versa. So baseball's sort of been the easiest one, and I try to avoid working on them in the middle of an active season.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So it hasn't quite worked out that way. I know I haven't got to San Francisco Giants yet. San Diego I haven't done. Those are the 2 that are sticking out. Close. Boston, I haven't done that yet.
I'm sorry, what?
Boston.
The Red Sox?
Yeah.
Huh.
But I just sort of like anytime it's sort of like I'm ready to start another one, then I just pick one at random.
Makes sense. Yeah, the Boston one would be interesting. They've had a lot of very good players and honestly just a few super Hall of Famers. I mean, you got all the guys whose numbers are retired, but that team's been around for 100 and, well, it's founded in 1901, so 119 years now. And there's only probably about 10 guys you'd be like, all right, those guys are really, really top guys. They've just had a whole bunch of really good guys. I mean, I don't consider Jim Rice one of the absolute top guys, even though he's a Hall of Famer. So, but you got Cy Young, you got Ted Williams, you got Yaz. But Yaz is even a step down from those two guys.
Oh, for sure.
And they have a whole bunch of, you've got a whole bunch of Joe Cronins and Wade Boggs, and Clemens should be way up at the top too. And Pedro should be way up at the top. But, Ortiz and guys like that. So, Jimmy Fox. So, Jackie Jensen, for those people who love the 1950s. And they actually were playing that on Baseball Network the other day, the old home run derbies from the 1950s. So, you had, like, Ernie Banks hitting off against Johnny Mize for a home run derby, which is fantastic.
That sounds incredible. I gotta watch that.
Yeah, I used to watch him as kids without really realizing what I was looking at. It was like, as I remember, it was Jackie Jensen beat somebody on the Pirates.
Well, wasn't he a former MVP, like in '57, I think?
He might have been. This is Jackie Jensen's years are burning. I don't even actually know if he's still alive.
Well, yeah, it's burning. It's just they're redoing the ashes.
Oh no, he died at age 55. He was not an old man. He was not very old.
Damn.
3-time All-Star, AL MVP in 1958. So there you go. But yeah, those, if you can find those things when they show them like in the middle of the day on MLB Network, they're fantastic to watch. Like, because it takes place in like 1956, 57, 58, somewhere in there. And they did it for a few years. So you have like Mickey Mantle as a young man and like a young-ish Hank Aaron and a young middle of his career Willie Mays and all sorts of stuff. It's just amazing seeing those guys just they're in an empty ballpark. There's like no fans, which would never happen today.
Well, it happened right now.
And rushing balls. So.
Just want to point out the empty ballparks are happening right now, so it's certainly very possible.
Yeah, they had the drone video of all the empty stuff in Chicago, and they went over the White Sox stadium, and everyone's like, "Well, that's not any different." So.
Yeah, and this weekend we've got empty arena WrestleMania. That'll be interesting.
It will be interesting. I wonder how involved Gronk is going to be.
He's the host.
He is the host, and he's still going on The Masked Singer. So I'm presuming they're to the final 9 now on The Masked Singer. So I'm presuming he's going to be eliminated first next week, or I don't even know how they're doing it. But he's by far the worst singer remaining. So, and I use singer in as many air quotes as possible. So.
Oh, so I'll leave you with another bit of homework. If you want to think that he's really a bad singer, and maybe he is, I haven't seen it because I don't watch The Masked Singer. I watched something much worse years ago. I think it was called But Can They Sing?
Okay. And
it was actors of, I think, a lower quality of what they're getting on Masked Singer, from what I can tell, or other performers. And it was hosted by, I want to say, Ahmet Zappa, which just shows you the quality already.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
The lesser-known Zappa brother.
Yes. And one of the performers was Bai Ling, who sang covered the Divinals, I Touch Myself.
Okay, hold on. I have to look this up. This is called the Can They Sing?
Or if you just find it, Bai Ling singing I Touch Myself. And she can't sing, so the answer is, but can they sing? In her case, the answer is no. It's right up there with when Yoko would sing.
Okay. So, but can they sing? There you go, from 2005. But so, did I ever tell you my my favorite bad reality show that you should probably go watch?
No. What is that?
So back when I was in college, so we're talking like 1999 or 2000, Fox had just gotten into the reality TV thing. That was around the "But Are You Hot" type reality TV.
Okay.
But they had a show, like a one-off, called Man versus Beast, where they had like an elephant pull an airplane and a whole bunch of little people pull an airplane and see who was faster. But the single best event, the single best thing of all time, was they had a sprinter up in a 100-yard dash up against a zebra. And they had like the keys to the matchup, and the commentator is Carl Lewis. So first of all, the comedy level is high. But Carl Lewis is giving his keys to the matchup, and he says, the keys through the zebra: 1, it has to get off to a good start. 2, it has to run hard all the way through. And 3, it must understand that it's in a race.
The worst thing is Carl Lewis was probably getting help, and he probably thought about this for hours.
But just if you could find just that, just the zebra against the sprinter, or the elephant against the little people pulling the airplane, that show was so bad it was fantastic. So I will watch violin. You find Carl Lewis doing the color commentary on a zebra versus a sprinter. We'll check our notes.
That's the opening for next. I won't even ask you how things are in Chicago. You don't have to ask me how things are here. It'll be the same. We're both going to be at home, and we both won't have left.
We'll be at home. Exactly right. So
I may or may not be on day 18.
Stay safe.
I was going to say I may or may not be on day 18 of not drinking. We'll see.
You can make it. It's only 2 more weeks from today.
Yeah, I can make it. I can make it. I hate to lose, so I hate to lose to myself. But if I lose to myself, then I guess I won.
If you lose to yourself, do you owe yourself a beer? It's very confusing.
I don't know.
So anyway, man, I'll talk to you later.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Evan. Thank you so much for listening, and that's got to be the first time in maybe 5 years Biling's ever been mentioned on a podcast. You never know what you're going to hear at the buck stops here. Keep listening. We're going to be back next week with a brand new show. Thanks so much, and stay safe.